Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alexa and Friends. My name is Jeff Blankenburg, and as we do every week, we get to talk with a bunch of interesting people about what they're doing in the world of Alexa and voice. Today, I have the special honor of having Heather Luna join us. She's one of our Alexa champions. Thank you so much for being here, Heather.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Certainly. So one of the things that I really like to do in these kinds of conversations is first get into some very silly questions that I'm going to ask you in a minute. You did not know these were coming, and I haven't prepared you for them, and that's okay. But then after that, we're going to get into kind of what your background is. You've kind of an interesting background. I've stalked you online and tried to get a little bit of information about who you are and what you do. But you're a developer, right? You have been working in technology for quite a while, and I want to hear all about your history. But before that, you got to get past my silly questions. So
I'm going to get past them. I got to.
The first question I have for you is I want you to imagine for a moment that you can pick any superpower in the entire world that you've ever heard of. You can make one up if you want to. But if you could just pick one superpower, what superpower would you pick, and how would you use it for good?
That is a tough question. My immediate thought was my superpower would be able to talk to animals to so that they would understand me, so that my dog would stop scratching my cabinets. But that doesn't really do anybody else any good.
Well, actually, I could see a spin on that where you send your cats out to help people and
yeah, let's go with that. If animals had the ability to understand people, what could we do to make the world a better place? Or I guess another superpower that I'm trying to think of an actual serious one, which I'll get into this later, being able to talk to people that have handicaps, if you're deaf or something of that nature, just being able to communicate with everybody, different languages and stuff.
Oh, I like that.
It's so hard to be bilingual, and there's wouldn't it just be great if you could understand every language and you could talk to people from all over the world? Can you imagine?
And especially in this world the world has shrunk so much, right? Just because of technology. But then on top of that, there's so many places where it's a lot of work to try to get the words that I'm saying right now into another language with the same meaning. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. And think about all the good we could do if we could all understand one another.
All right, let's get a little more personal on this one. So the next question is, do you have any background in music? Have you played any musical instruments or anything like that?
Yes, I've played the flute.
Oh, very good. Do you still?
No, not anymore. Okay. But I can dab a few notes out on one.
Sure, I'm the same way with the clarinet. I could probably make it noise.
We're like the woodwinds team here.
Yeah, team woodwind. Okay, so my question for you is, I want you to imagine that you are in a rock band. Maybe it's a rock band with a flute. Those exist. And you and your bandmates have put together your first collection of songs, and you have to come up with a name for your first album. What would the name of your debut album be?
Jeez, how do you come up with these questions? They're very, very good.
They are, and they often give a lot of insight into people and what they think about and what's important to them.
What would my rock band name be? I have no clue. My first thing is people call me Heats, so I think it would be the Heats is on. I don't know. These are such good questions. They really make you think.
They do, and that's okay. So you can always go with your name. Is there any nicknames maybe that you go by?
Heats.
Heats, there we go. That's certainly an option.
That's why I thought the album name could be The Heats is on. That's the favorite slogan there.
I like it. Okay, so last question. This requires a little bit of storytelling. I'm going to tell you a story, and then you have to make a choice.
Okay.
So I want you to imagine you're walking through a really large metropolitan area, city, and you're meeting some friends, and you need to get to a street over. So let's say you're on 8th Avenue, and you need to get to 9th Avenue. So you need to get over to the next block, but city blocks are pretty large. And instead of walking all the way down to the cross street and then all the way back up to get to the place you want to go, you notice there's an alley that is a direct shot exactly where you want to go. It's a bright, sunny day. It doesn't look like there's any danger in the alley at all. So you decide you're going to cut down this alley to get there faster. And as you walk down this alley, which isn't much wider than your shoulders, you get about halfway there, and you notice at the other end of the alley that a giant horse-sized duck emerges.
What?
Right? So I want you to imagine a duck the size of a horse. And it looks a little aggressive. It looks like maybe if you go that way, you're going to get in a little bit of a fight. And so I would imagine, like most people do, that you're going to turn around and say, no, thank you. I'm going the other way. But as you turn around, you notice instead that at the other end, the end you entered, is now filled with 100 duck-sized horses. So now we've got little tiny horses at the other end, and they look equally aggressive. So now you're kind of trapped in this alley, and you need to make a decision. How am I going to get out of this alley? You're going to have to fight your way out one way or the other, but what I want to know is which end do you tend to think you have a better shot of getting out of?
Well, I'm from Philly, so I'll get out of either end, no matter what. Do I have bread? Like, if I had bread, I would just put it on the ground and walk around.
Only if you currently have bread on you right now.
I do not have bread on me right now.
I like that you're prepared to throw hands at any moment, though. That's good.
I mean, I could put my sleeves down, and then I could go with the littler ones and pick them up and move them out of my way.
100 of them? Horses? They kick, they bite. There's no right answer here. I'm just curious what your thought process is as you work through this.
I think I would probably just go like this and then probably go through the smaller ones.
Okay. Just hope for your best, kind of kick your way through.
Like I said, I'm from Philly. That's what we do,
I think that's very reasonable. Yeah, the answer teeters. People go either direction. I'm a giant duck guy myself. I think that's the way that I would go. But as I've told people before, it's only because I would want to find a way to ride it. Like, I think that would be pretty awesome.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Okay. That's the end of my silly questions, but thank you for entertaining me.
Those are so good, by the way.
Thank you. I tend to stay with the same three, but I think I'm ready to start mixing them up.
I should have prepared better.
All right. So let's get into who you are. So one of the things that I really like to tell the story of, and I'm going to let you tell the story, is kind of where you came from. A lot of people that work in voice today don't have a background in voice. They didn't start in voice. They didn't think, man, I want to be a voice developer when they were a sophomore in high school. Like, that's not really a thing.
It wasn't a thing back then, right?
And so, I mean, there was some voice technology, but certainly not like we have today. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your path, maybe from high school or college, wherever you feel good starting, and kind of give me that quick, like you would describe to somebody if you were in an interview. Like, oh, I went here and I worked here for a little while and I did this stuff, and then I went here and did this. And I'd love you to give us that kind of background.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to do technology. It was either technology or be a lawyer, and technology and I had to pay for my own schooling. So technology had, I could finish in 2 years and get what I needed to kind of do my first job. So I went, my first computer job was actually working the counter at Geek Squad.
Oh, nice.
And people like to make fun of that. But at the same time, I think that's why I'm such an empathetic person in dealing with technology today. Yeah. When you work at the Geek Squad, you have a million different personalities coming at you, and you just have to know and learn how to deal with them. And back in the day, I think I was probably 18, 19 years old working at Geek Squad. I definitely had a harder time dealing with different personalities than I did now. But, I learned over time that, I learned how to deal with all different types of people. I learned how to be empathetic, and that really set me up. So I always like to mention the Geek Squad because I think they get this silly rap, but it's just,
I don't know.
It's a really good starting point.
Even without the people, I think that's a really hard job, because I don't care how technical you are. You're going to encounter things every day that you've never seen before. And
it's
I think
always different.
I would imagine there's a lot of Googling behind the scenes, how do we do this? I don't know how to solve this problem. But that skill, that getting better at a web search, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, that's a solid 35% of being a good developer is knowing how to effectively search for things.
Yes, I mean, I'm not the most advanced developer. I'm still working at becoming a developer, because that was another thing. I I started out, Geek Squad, then I did like IT support, like help desk. It was never really in my crosshairs to be a developer when I first started on this journey.
Sure.
Then I got into, I worked at Wharton, and I was a help desk support specialist there as well. And then this thing came up for a systems administrator, and I thought to myself, it would be really, really awesome to be able to implement change for people at a higher level. And when you're working with like Wharton Computing, you're not only supporting the staff, but you're supporting your students as well, which is awesome to see.
To be clear, this is the Wharton School of Business, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Arguably the best business school in the world. I love them. I still love them. I still talk to a lot of people from there. So the systems administration position came up, and I thought that would be really cool. And I had already done some server work. And I went to my boss at the time, and I said, I thought I was doing the right thing. And I said, this position really interests me. I would really, really like to, apply to this and go through the interview process. And he told me that he didn't think I had the mindset to be a developer, that I didn't have the mindset to code. And then he compared me to my husband. He said, if you want to be a developer, you need to code like your husband. And I was like, are you serious? And I was just like, I've had bad bosses before, but this is the first time that somebody told me that, I didn't have the mindset to code. So for a little bit, like I was kind of like, okay, I can't do this. But then DjangoCon, which is the Django web framework, they came to Wharton. They had their event there. And, they were so nice. And, just seeing everybody and talking to everybody, they were like, you can be a developer. Like anybody can be a developer. Like everyone has the mindset to code. So they kind of like propped me back up, and it was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then at the time, my husband was actually on the Alexa music team. And I was like, this is really cool. Like I would really like to get started. And I think the great thing about like Alexa development that I love is that, if you're working with Alexa, like you're probably also going to be working with Amazon Web Services, which is like, that is such a sought after skill right now in cloud computing. So when you're developing for Alexa, you're not only learning about the skills kit and the development console, you're also kind of tapping into AWS too at places.
Very much, yeah.
So it was kind of cool to get like experience in both because they didn't have experience at both. So, I made my first skill, and it took me 6 months to do 200 lines of code, but that doesn't matter, right?
Not at all.
No, that was happy days. And I'll just go back, I'll backtrack a minute. I did end up applying for the job. That guy ended up getting let go of Wharton. And, now I have Happy Days. And Happy Days has, if you have a skill that does really well in the Alexa marketplace, you get developer rewards. So, that has garnered me some money. So it's kind of like, hey, you told me I couldn't do this thing. Well, look at me now. Like, and now I'm an Alexa champion. And, I always talk about Alexa just being my gateway drug into development because it's really easy to develop. I use Lambda for my backend, so I don't even need a server.
What language do you use?
I use Python, which is also something great that I wanted to give you guys kudos for. I remember when we first started with Alexa, like there wasn't a lot of Python support, and that has been growing, and it's so great to see. Because a lot of the developer ecosystem now is Python, and people that are getting started are probably going to gravitate more towards Python because it's like an easier language to learn than some of the other ones that are out there.
Sure.
And the thing about like Alexa development is like, if you make a mistake, you're going to know immediately that you made a mistake because she's not going to work. And I always like to talk about how when I was developing Happy Days, I just remember being like so annoyed because there was so much red in CloudWatch because I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, is this ever going to work? Am I ever going to get through like certification, which I did obviously, but it would be so fun because like I would be so annoyed and then it would work and then it would spit out like this positive quote. And it was just like, it was just interesting, like being so annoyed with like not like, with just running into errors and then things would work and then it would be like a positive quote. It was just kind of interesting how that worked.
that you've just described every developer's journey ever, right? Like it was awful and it was awful and it was awful. And then it did the thing I wanted it to do.
And then you wanted to implement like a new feature and then it broke again. And then it was just like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, no, that feeling doesn't go away, unfortunately, but you have to find the joy in the working to be so much more rewarding than the errors. Like I do a bunch of live streaming on my own now. I stream almost every morning.
I know, I see that.
And I'm doing live development. And so in that live development, people are watching me make all sorts of mistakes. And sometimes they'll even coach me through it. Like, hey, you know what would be easier is if you did X or Y. Yeah, I guess that would be easier. Because, you just get in that mindset and you're headed down one specific path. And it's hard to see all the roads in front of you. So I think that's been really awesome for me. But it's good to hear that that's like everybody has that experience, right? Of how is this ever going to work? I have so many errors. I've broken so many things. And you get there eventually.
Yeah, and I did, and it's been great. I didn't realize that like once I got published, I thought I would just get published and like that would be it. And then there was a discussion about like I forget how it happened. Like it said I was entitled to something, and I was like, I don't understand. And then we had gone into the developer console where you can. What's also nice, I wanted to also give you kudos for, is that I remember, when I first started developing for Alexa, which was probably like 5-6 years ago, you don't recall at this point. It was a while ago. Like the developer console and seeing like user metrics was like very simple and basic. And now you can see how many like unique users you have and how many sessions. You can kind of see like how your skill is doing. But we looked and it was like over 10,000 unique users. And this is my first Python project. So like I'm stoked. I'm like, oh my God, like I did it. And it was like, but I don't understand like how the word got out. And apparently, I think it was Engadget or something. They did an article on the best Alexa skills, and they had said Happy Days was one of them, and entrepreneur.com did it too. So the Happy Days skill had been published in 2 articles online, which is why the user count went up. And I was just like, what? And then in the back of my mind, again, I'm going back to that guy that told me I didn't have the mindset. And I'm like, here I am published in 2 articles online with it's not like a website that nobody knows about. It was like, these are big websites that were like, we like your skill. And it was just kind of like.
Congrats on that, by the way. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. It was just my first Python project. And I really don't know that like I would have been able to continue my development journey without Alexa. Like there's no way that I would have gotten this far without doing that first skill, which is why when people talk about like, how do I get started in development, I'm like, make an Alexa skill. Because it's easy. There's a lot of resources now, especially for Python. The blueprints that are out there, you don't have to, people think you have to start from scratch. You don't. There's a lot of blueprints out there so that you can kind of just have a template to get yourself started, and then you can just kind of figure it out from there.
Agreed. And so you've done this Alexa stuff. Are you exclusively only working in Alexa stuff now, or have you found a different role as a developer doing other stuff? What's your current status?
So my Alexa stuff has always been kind of a side project. I've always maintained employment doing something else. So I am actually I was a DevOps engineer, and now I'm a services engineer. And I work for this amazing company called Brightcore, and they do insurance stuff. Nice. And I'm still growing my Python skill set. I'm not as advanced. We have some of the best coders in the world at Brightcore. I'm not as advanced as some of the other people, but I'm getting there. And I'm really able to understand more and grow because of my background with Alexa. So
that's awesome. What a great.
Yeah, and then when I started, I didn't have a child, but now I have a child, and she's great. And her favorite thing to do is tell Alexa good night. Because we have a routine set up that when you say goodnight, it turns off her playroom lights and some other lights in the house. And like, I'll go to say it and she goes, no, Mama, me. And then she goes, Alexa, good night.
How old?
She's 2.5. So
oh, that's fun.
She's learned the wake word. She's probably known that for about a year now. So she learned that. I'm teaching her well, Jeff, I promise.
That's good. Excellent. My kids are 17 and almost 13. And so it's a little different world here where they say it almost with a tone of disgust in their voice, like, Dad, don't make me do that.
Oh, come on. It's so cool.
No, don't get me wrong. They like it. That's just secretly behind the scenes. They know Dad works for Alexa and they have to give me a hard time. So I think that's totally fine. All right. So you've had a pretty interesting career where you kind of you've always been pretty technical, but Alexa was the thing that kind of drew you into development.
Mhm.
You got to show that former manager up, which is awesome. That's a really good story to tell. What an awful thing to tell anyone, that they don't have
Yeah,
a
be nice. I
mind.
mean, my shirt says forward kindness. Let's keep that in mind,
Right.
especially these days.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so your Alexa stuff has always been kind of on the side. So let's dig into what your thoughts are on voice, because I think this is always an interesting conversation to have with people. So today, obviously, Alexa does all of the things that it does. There's skills, there's smart home, there's all that kind of stuff. Have you spent any time thinking about what it'll look like in maybe 5 or 10 years?
I've thought about what I would hope that it
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. I mean, obviously, none of us know, but we have our hopes and aspirations. That's what I want to hear.
I mean, right now, the Alexa technology is kind of geared towards people that can pronounce, like, don't have problems enunciating words. You know, it's geared towards people that can hear the response. I think what I would like to see this ecosystem develop into, now that we have things like visuals, like the show that can see what you're doing because it has a camera on it. I would like to see more towards, you know, more accessibility towards people that, you know, might not have a voice to ask questions. Like sign language is what I'm thinking about. And, you know, kind of just being able to get a response out of her. Maybe it's, you know, I don't know what it is, but I think now it's geared towards people that can talk and that people can hear, but not everybody is like that. So now that we have the visual component, which we didn't have before, you know, I'm thinking that there could be some work done there.
Yeah, actually, there's a feature that you may not have heard of, but there's something in the Alexa app called keyboard mode. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
So this is relatively new. I think it came out last fall. But in the Alexa app, there's a picture of a keyboard in like the top left corner of the app, and what it allows you to do is type in the same way that you would talk to Alexa.
That's awesome.
I think it solves it's early days, but I think it's an early look at how we are thinking about making things more accessible, because it's not even just about the people that can't enunciate words properly or that can't hear. It's also about the times where you need to use or want to use something that Alexa offers, but now is not the time to open a microphone and start having an open conversation, right? The example I always use is when you're at home and you're making your grocery list, right? You'll say, add milk to my shopping list, or eggs, or whatever it is. But when you're in the grocery store and you need to know what's on that list, you don't want to be like, what's on my shopping list? Like, you're not going to do that in the middle of the grocery store. You tend to open the app. And so if you had something that was like that, but wasn't native to Alexa, you could talk to the skill by just kicking open keyboard mode and be like, what else do I need to do? Or what else is on my list? And you could do it privately and quietly without ever having to turn your speaker up or use the microphone at all. So I agree with you. I hope that we see a lot more of that. I also love the show and tell feature that Echo shows have. Have you played with that at all?
No, I haven't.
This is another big one for me. This is one of the stories I always like to tell about accessibility. But if you have a device with a camera like these, you can say, I won't say the wake word, but you can say, what am I holding? And then it turns the camera on, and you can just hold the product up. Even if you're blind or whatever, it'll coach you to say high or low or whatever. But you hold the can of, let's say, a can of soup. If I'm visually impaired, I can't tell you what kind of soup is in the can, right?
Yeah.
Can companies don't have Braille or something on their labels, but they don't. And so you can hold it up, and Alexa will actually read you the can, tell you that's a can of broccoli soup, or this is chicken noodle. So I think that there's always been an eye towards accessibility with Alexa, but I agree with you. I think that there's so much more that could be done. And things like captioning and this keyboard input, I think will go a long way.
Yeah, and I think that like I said earlier, like it's kind of like a partnership, right? That Alexa really does plug into AWS services. Like I think that as AWS grows, like the stuff that we can do with Alexa, like those possibilities will grow as well.
Yeah. Someone just mentioned in the chat, like, could that show and tell feature that I was describing, could it help people that are colorblind identify colors? Like, especially if they need to grab the red or the green thing, whatever that is. I can't imagine that they would be doing electrical work, but maybe like that's a good example, right?
It's interesting because my husband is colorblind.
My son is too, so I completely sympathize with this. but yeah, those kinds of things certainly could be possible. I don't believe that the show and tell feature will do that today, but that's a good thing to add to our list of potential features for the future. So, Heather, let me give you a little view into my vision of the future, where today a lot of the things that we do with voice are user initiated, right? The user says something and then Alexa goes and does something for you. Maybe it's turn a light on, maybe it's get some information, maybe it's give you a happy quote, right? It might, all sorts of things. What I want more than anything is it's not really about voice for me. It's about that artificial intelligence that lives behind the scenes. And I want the scenario I always lay out for people is I want the device, without saying the word that's on my shirt. I want it to pipe up and tell me, hey, you have a dentist appointment next Tuesday. And it's not telling me because that was on my calendar and it's just giving me a notification. It's telling me because it booked that thing for me. It's telling me because it was able to look at my calendar and my dentist's calendar and talk to my healthcare company to make sure that I'm eligible for a cleaning. And it took care of all of that proactively because it had been 6 months. I never thought about it. I never interacted or initiated anything. And I imagine that there's a lot of that kind of stuff that could be really interesting the further and further we take this. Imagine walking into a Home Depot and it says, welcome back, Jeff. Last time you were here, you bought a bunch of lumber. Are you looking for nails? They're in aisle 7. Right?
That would
Or
be great.
something like that, right? Now, think about what goes into that, right? They've either got to be able to visually or technologically, like maybe they recognize that my phone is in my pocket and they can recognize the Bluetooth signature on that. Or maybe it's a voice signature. Who knows how they recognize that I'm there? But they were able to recognize that, oh, that's Jeff. And Jeff is here. And I know the things he's purchased because he has a Home Depot account. Like all of that stuff just magically works. That stuff also just feels like magic to me. And I think it could be incredibly, incredibly powerful.
Well, we already kind of have some of that technology, like with the Go stores, where you can just walk in and walk out. Like you don't have to wait in line. You don't have to pay. Like it knows who you are. Like, so I think we're on the way.
When I'm in Seattle, that's one of my favorite things to do is we used to have. So there's one in the building that when we all went to the office in Seattle, the main day one building, there's a Go store in the bottom of it. And one of my colleagues, Paul Kutzinger, and I, and a few others, we used to try to figure out how fast we could complete a transaction. Because it keeps track of when you go in there, it tells you how long you were in the store, and then it gives you a receipt with what you purchased. And so Paul owns the record. He was able to get in and get a meal, which it consisted of something to eat and something to drink. He was able to get in and out in 6 seconds.
What?
Yeah. He skated,
great, by the way. I hope
grabbed a sandwich, grabbed a beverage, and walked right back out the door. And of course, it got it all perfectly. And we used to mess with that store so much. We would go in and we would take a product off the shelf, something that wasn't perishable, and we would move it to another part of the store and like tuck it back behind something. Because it uses cameras and all sorts of other sensors to be able to figure out what you purchased. And so then the next day we'd come in and we'd go to the shelf where the wrong thing was, and we'd grab it and we'd take our coat and like put it up under our coat and tuck it into like an inside pocket and walk out of the store. It's still new. It's still
That's
new.
awesome.
It's amazing.
So did they welcome like you guys trying to break things?
Early on, yeah, they said try to steal from us, like try to get away from, because like the whole point of the store is that you can't really steal.
Yeah.
The only hiccup that I think the store still has is if you and I went there together and I pull something off the shelf, there's a virtual cart floating in the cloud that keeps track of the fact that Jeff just took a yogurt off the shelf. The challenge it has is that if I hand you that yogurt, I'm still going to pay for it. They haven't done a good job at transferring products between shoppers.
Oh, okay.
Because I removed it from the shelf, I am the one that's going to pay for it.
Sounds like you need better facial recognition for that handoff.
One little thing, and again, that was a year ago. They may have solved for that by now. But that was the only thing that they even have signs on the door that say, like, don't hand products to other people because
you're still going to get charged for it.
Right.
Can the public go in now, or is that still just
yeah, they opened it to the public probably about a year ago. Are you in the Seattle area?
We moved. So we moved out there for my husband's Alexa job, and then he, it's very easy to move within Amazon. And then we had our daughter, and I was like, why are we still here? I was like, you don't have that job anymore. Like, I want to go, because we didn't have any like friends or family out there. I was just like, I really want to be closer to family, especially my in-laws. I was like, can we just go home? So we've done 2 cross-country moves now.
Wow. So you started Philly, you moved to Seattle, and then you're back in Philly?
Yes. Well, now we're in New Jersey, but yes.
Jersey's like kind of Philly. So that's
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, basically.
Like Philly light.
I'll still go down and I'll fight with those horse ducks you mentioned.
Perfect. You can't get Philly out of the girl, right?
No, you can't. It's always here.
Makes sense. All right. So is there anything else that, as you've been a developer, you've thought about voice experiences, you've built some cool things. Are there things that you wish, even today, that Alexa could do but just can't for whatever reason?
No, I honestly think that, the roadblocks come with the developers. Like, if you want to see something and you want to build it, like, you probably can. Like, you have a whole host of services to do it. Like, sometimes we sometimes get frustrated because we're speaking and she's not really like hearing exactly what we said, and we get stuff back that just makes no sense in regards to the question that we just asked. Right. Like, I think we asked her the other day, like, when is Easter? And then she told us what Easter was. And it's like, I know what Easter is. I wouldn't know when it is in 2021. So I think, like, her understanding of people's speech could be a little better, but I really don't think there's anything stopping any development into what she's capable of, especially with the AI stuff with AWS. Like, yeah, you can do a load of stuff, and you can tie Lambda. Lambda works really well with Alexa. You can tie AI stuff, I'm pretty sure, into like Lambda skills.
Yeah, very much. I've been playing with a few things that include Lambda and some of the AI modules. I'm working on a thing right now. I got way deep into baseball cards, or my old baseball card collection when this pandemic hit. I was like, I need something to do. I have this whole collection that I haven't gone through. It's like 20,000 cards. I logged every one of them into a database and like kept track of them all and looked up prices. And
I'm going to ask you a question now. What's the total?
Most of my collection is not terribly valuable because they came from the 80s and 90s when they mass overproduced most of the cards.
Oh, okay. My dad has a similar collection.
I think that segment, the stuff, the cards that I had as a kid, there's so many of them that I think I was close to like 15,000. So yeah, not terrible, but if you think I have 20,000 cards, that's not great either, right? That's at 70 cents on average a card or something. But that being said, it also got me into collecting modern cards. From 2020 and 2021, I've started picking up the hobby again. And the very small amount of cards that I picked up from that, just opening packs and a few boxes here and there, I've added almost another $10,000 to the collection because cards today are really well made and they're uniquely numbered, so they have a much higher value than the cards that I did as a kid.
I had no clue they were still making cards. It's just baseball cards, or is it other sports?
All sports cards. In fact, basketball cards are the most valuable right now.
That's awesome.
It's absolutely nuts. I mean, it is when you get an opportunity, maybe later today or over the weekend, look up modern sports cards. There are articles and articles written by all sorts of people that this is what people are starting to invest money in. Like, instead of just living in the stock market, they'll go buy 10 Michael Jordan rookie cards because they know that they're going to hold and grow in value as you go over in time.
It's like your new Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they really are comparing it. There's like alternative investment mechanisms. It's just absolutely crazy. So the reason I'm telling this story is because one of the things that I wanted to do to simplify my logging of this stuff was, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a computer vision AI module that I could show the camera a card, and it would be like, oh, that's Mike Trout 2017. He's on the Los Angeles Angels. And then it goes out to eBay and looks at sold listings and says, and then on average, this sells for $37. That would be absolutely like mind-blowingly cool. And it requires a lot of that, like you said, a lot of that AI and machine learning stuff to be able to figure out what those things are. The challenge I have right now is that it still takes about 8 to 10 seconds to identify a card.
Ooh. Which
is a long time for me to like sit and wait and wait and wait. And so something that I'm going to have to continue to play with. But I think I'll be better off like taking a still image, firing that off, than trying to like interpret video. But either way, it's still really, really cool. And that's
I can get that down.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's manageable. I don't know much about any of that, but it's very cool to play with for sure.
My husband just said AWS deep lens.
Yep. Deep
He's
lens is part of what I'm
watching
playing with.
downstairs.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that as you continue to be a voice developer, it's not just about the voice. It's about how do I provide the knowledge and the context that the user wants at this exact moment, and that's machine learning.
Yes.
Ultimately, that's where we're all going to end up. So I'm very, very excited about that future. I don't know how long it's going to take to get there, but I know that it's something that I feel so fortunate to have found my way into this Alexa team and be able to play with this technology every day. And I honestly can't wait to see what 5 years from now looks like. Because 5 years ago, it was hardly believable that you could talk to something. And now we are. That's just a natural part of the world.
So like 5 years ago, we had like our basic Echo devices, and now there's like rings and glasses and shows and all sorts of stuff and flexes.
Have you seen the glasses?
No. Dude, they look like real glasses.
Yeah. I mean, I don't look fantastic in glasses, but this is...
I do. Yeah.
But you can see the arms on them. They're a little bit thicker.
Yeah. Is that where all the technology
that's where all the stuff is. The battery lasts all day, but the speakers are in there. And they're even like the ones I got are even like the nice tortoise. I don't know if it'll focus.
Yeah, I like them. They look like real glasses. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, they're
legit. Now, is your prescription in there, or is that just?
I don't wear anything. So somehow I made it to 44 years old, and I still don't wear anything to help my eyes.
Lucky you.
Change at some point. Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I feel like I won some kind of DNA lottery. I've never had a cavity. I didn't need braces, and I have never worn glasses.
You have won the DNA lottery.
That's all of that's going to fall apart at some point. Age will catch up with me, but for now, it's good.
That's in your next 5 years.
Yeah.
We will start to see Jeff Blankenburg decline.
Oh yeah, it's all fall apart at once, I think. All right, so we have a little bit of time left. What's your next big thing? What is the thing you're thinking about? Do you have a next Alexa project you're working on?
Before I had Bella, you have a kid and it kind of throws everything off a little bit. I had these dreams of hosting workshops for young girls or underrepresented groups in tech and getting them started in development. Like if they wanted to learn development, like there's this great group that operates out of Philadelphia called Tech Girls, and they have workshops, and it would be great to host a workshop, probably with a blueprint, because there's no way we're going to be able to code like an entire skill in like an hour. But it's just kind of help girls, because I really do think that, they're just underrepresented right now. Like you don't see many women in tech. It's great because I love the Women in Voice initiative going on right now. That was started, and it's a whole group of amazing women, amazing developers. And I would like to see more of that. I think that in order to get more women into tech, we're going to need to champion the younger age. And I think your daughter was interested in tech, in like development or something. That
is correct. So she's 17. She's graduating high school next year, and actually in a couple of weeks we're going to visit a bunch of schools because she wants into computer science and engineering kind of degrees. So I'm doing my best to replace myself in this industry with a woman.
Yes.
But I only have the one to offer, so we'll do what we can there. But in addition to that, I also personally, with a group of friends, we started a scholarship for women going into technology.
That's awesome.
And so it's for girls that are going into college that want a degree in computer science or engineering. And we actually just closed the submission period for this year, but we're reviewing applications now, and I'm really excited about where that's going to go. But we give I think this year it's $3,000 scholarships for 5 different women to go to college. I mean, obviously that's not going to pay for their whole college, but it's a good start.
It doesn't matter. Like every little bit helps. Like when I was trying to decide, how I was going to pay for everything. Like I think even at one point, like my church helped me out with books. Like every little bit counts, right?
It does. It makes a big difference. And that debt that sits on top of so many people these days is just overwhelming.
Which I paid off, by the way. Like I have no more like student debt.
Congratulations. I got you for Alexa Developer Awards. you have a young child. Congratulations on that. And now paying off student debt. That's an amazing accomplishment. That's not something that most people do before 50
Yeah,
anymore.
she's pretty great. Like I just want to enable her. Like I don't want anyone like her coming across like that guy that I came across saying like you can't do this. Like women can do anything that a man can do. I would just love to be able to do my part in trying to help enable like the younger generation to get involved.
Yep.
Because a lot of the times the problem is that younger women don't have someone to champion them into
Right.
getting involved in technology, or they'll get started and then they'll go to their first class and then they'll, like me, there was only one other woman in my class. Her name was Heather also. And then she dropped out within a couple of months. So or they decide that they want to switch because they realize that there's not as many women in the class as they assume that there would be. It's like being able to champion someone and mentor someone through that,
Right.
and just sticking with someone and giving them the tools that they need to get started and keep moving. Like that's what I want to get back to now that my daughter's 2.5. She still needs me a lot, and she's in mama mode right now. So I have to do everything.
Sure.
And she prefers me right now. Sorry, Dave. I know you're listening to this, but it's true. But now that she's able to kind of like do things by herself, she sleeps really well at night. Like I would like to get back to doing some of that, especially now that I'm back on the East Coast. I could very easily host like a tech girls workshop around Alexa development.
Totally. And I can't recommend doing the blueprints enough, because it's not about, you're not going to take a middle school girl and make her a developer tomorrow, or boy for that matter. I don't want to even call out gender on that. But the idea that you get them thinking about it, like
Yes.
a blueprint gives them enough to be like, well, wait, how did that work? Like I said this thing and it magically knew to respond with this, or it started this story, or it filled these spots in. How did all, like, you hope that a couple of them will really grab hold and say, I want to know more about how that works. This is really interesting.
Yeah, it gets like the hamster wheel spinning. Like, and I've had like I give Alexa talks, and I will say that mine are more of a beginner talk, but like for people to get involved, that's what they need. They don't need the talk where they're just like, I don't understand anything about this. But I've had people go and they like develop like, because I think there's also a misnomer that your Alexa skill needs to be published to the public. It doesn't. Like it could be a family thing that you do one night, and you can just not publish it, but you can still use it on your Alexa devices in the home. So somebody made like a family skill that had like family history questions and answers. And I just thought that was really cool. Like,
yeah,
you don't need to publish a skill. Like if you want
that was one I did with my kids, where we set up basically a family Q&A. So it was things like, what's mom's phone number? What's dad's phone number? So that if for some reason we needed to step away, or they couldn't get a hold of us, or maybe they couldn't remember our number, they could just ask Alexa while they were in the house and do that. And
which is pretty amazing. Like,
yeah,
I think that people forget about that.
It's amazing. Agreed. All right. So you said you haven't really done much Alexa development lately, only because kids, which I totally get.
Kids, work, trying to stay healthy in this pandemic.
Do you have any of those big ideas though sitting in the back of your head, like, oh, when I get some time?
Yeah, like gems of STEM, and I think I actually still have that. Just something that talks about women in technology and their accomplishments, and then like the other thing would be like that I wanted to tie into that was like someone would say I like art and design and blah 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 blah, and then Alexa would spit out like a couple job titles that might be job titles in technology that might interest somebody.
That's very cool.
Like I always, and I think it's important for developers to remember that like you can develop for yourself, but it's also important to think about who you're developing for. And, when I first started working with Alexa, like I knew that I wanted to do something that would, help people. So that's kind of I'm still in the same mindset as I was when I made Happy Days. I've dealt with anxiety and depression for some time now. So when I made Happy Days, it was like, maybe this will help somebody. And I think it has. Like a lot of the reviews that I get are like, I was having a really bad day, and then I asked for a happy quote, and like it helped. Even if it helps for a minute, it helped, So I would still do that. And I really do want to get back to enabling like more women and underrepresented groups to get involved in technology. I think part of it is that most people just don't know where and how to get started. Right. So that would be my next skill.
And I think a lot of women encounter the person that you had, right? He's more or less a gatekeeper.
Yes.
But he's saying, no, you can't pass through here. You're not qualified for whatever reason. And I think most women that considered technology as a potential career path abandoned it because someone like that got in their way, and they felt like, well, they must know what they're talking about. And you could have listened to that voice of authority, your manager, and said, oh, he doesn't think I can do this. I probably should find something else. So I'm really glad that you kind of worked your way past that, because I think that's one of the biggest barriers. But that happens in school too, right? Teachers and guidance counselors and all sorts of stuff will steer students to specific things that they think are appropriate for them. And more often than not, they steer women away from technology roles.
I thought I remembered a tweet of yours where that happened with your daughter. Where
it did. It wasn't her getting steered away, but it was a horrible first experience. Her freshman year, her first day of school. This is the first day of high school ever in her whole life. Her first period class is like intro to computer science. Now, she's my kid. Obviously, she's been playing with computers plenty and knew what she was doing. And I've also raised somebody that's confident and will stand up for herself, which I absolutely love. And so she walked into the classroom, and the teacher, who looked at the class roster and only saw boys' names, her name is Riley, which could very easily be a boy's name. He looked at his class roster and saw, oh, I have all boys in this class, which is to be expected. She was the one girl. She walked into the classroom, and I mean, she's a cute, slender girl. And he said to her, I'm sorry, honey, do you have the wrong classroom? Where do you need to be? And she looked straight at him. She's like, no, I'm supposed to be here. Like, but he could, like, that could have been taken a completely different way.
Yeah, and if it was anyone that wasn't raised like you raised your daughter, that could have turned her off, made her walk away, and then she would be like, I will find something else to do. Like,
completely.
It happens.
Yeah. And so thankfully it didn't. She took AP Computer Science 1 her sophomore year. She's taking AP Computer Science 2 this year, and she's like, what do I do for my senior? There's nothing to take. And these are classes she's just acing, right? They're easy for her. But so we're looking at potentially getting her enrolled in, like, there's a local college nearby, and maybe have her take a computer science class there, get some college credit or something, because
that's awesome.
She's taken all they have to offer at our high school, which is cool.
You go, girl.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to see what her future looks like.
Proud papa moment.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, I have a couple of things that I want to share with our audience. Before we wrap up here, is there anything else that you have on the top of your mind? Anything you want to talk about or promote or share?
No, not really. Just, support the women in your life that might be wanting to get involved in technology. Be a good ally. That's all I can say. And be kind to each other. There's a lot of weird stuff going on right now in the world that's not so great. Be kind to each other.
Agreed. I have a T-shirt that just says the words "Be kind" on it.
Yeah, mine says "For kindness." For kindness, be kind to each other.
But the number of people that give me a weird look, I'm like, is it so hard to be nice to someone? It's not.
It's not.
All right. So I'm gonna bump you off the camera. Don't leave yet.
I won't leave. I'm staying.
I'd love to have you chat, but I'm gonna bump you off just for a second. I'm gonna share a couple things with our audience, and then I'll come back and chat with you at the end.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so everybody, I want to share just a couple of things. In case you guys didn't know this, I want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going on. The first is there's a huge community of developers, people like Heather and a number of others, as well as the product teams and the people that work on Alexa themselves. They're all getting together on Slack in a place that is a Alexa community, right? So it's meant to ask questions and get help, but also meet other people and network and maybe build projects together. You can find that by just heading over to alexa.design/Slack. Just jump in your browser, head over there, and you'll get in very easily. We'd love to have you over there. Stop and say hi. My username there is Jeff Blankenburg. You can find me and a bunch of the other folks that work on Alexa there. And we would love to hear what you're thinking, what your feedback is, what you like, what you don't like. It's open season for all of that. The other thing I want to let you guys know, and this is the first time I'm telling anyone, is that this show, Alexa and Friends, that we've been doing for about a year, all of the episodes have been archived, and what we're starting now is a podcast. And so the audio that you're hearing right now today will be eventually released on the podcast as well. And you can get to that by going to alexa.design/podcast. And you can find it on all your favorite services, whatever you listen to podcasts on, it's there. We've already published 4 episodes, and our hope is that we will continue to keep this going so we have an interesting story about the people in voice every week, all year. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up here today. I want to make sure you guys get a chance to go to Slack. Make sure you check out the podcast. And we will be back again next week with another exciting guest. So thank you guys all for tuning in. It's always my pleasure to have you here to join and comment and share and talk with all of us. And hopefully we'll see you in Slack very soon. Take care, everybody.